Anybody else have a question? Okay. So this is an important point that I think I said at the beginning, but I really want to make this point because a lot of people think, because they equate issues with Title IX with the timely warnings that we give sometimes. Do you guys remember that, like, in my first year here, we did like something like between 3 and 6 timely warnings about incidents that had happened on campus? And lately you have seen less of them. We have been, that by the way is based on the Clery Act, which is different than Title IX, and there are a list of criteria that is set out for us about when we're supposed to make a report that something has gone on for public safety. But what you have to remember is that Clery reporting is only for instances that happened on our geography. It's a specific line that says if it was inside here, you report it. If it was within a time frame, like a delayed report isn't going to matter there because delayed reports don't do anything for public safety. Warning people like 3 months later isn't helpful. If it happened outside of that geography, you're not going to get one of those timely warnings. But Title IX, it doesn't matter when it happened or where it happened. If one or more of the people were involved with MSU, then we're involved. So the second person might not even be involved with MSU, and we're still involved. I've had situations where it involved someone who had no business on our campus, so we issued them a campus ban in cooperation with our Safety and Transportation Department, and they're not allowed to come here anymore. More of my cases involve 2 people who are associated with the university, but I'm just trying to make it clear to you how broad this is. It doesn't have to have happened here, and it doesn't have to be 2 people here. Plus, my office is involved with everything that has to do with students, faculty, and staff. So any combination of those people is potentially going to, or some Yahoo we don't even know, could be involved as well. Now, how we're going to intervene and respond is going to be very different depending on how much the people are involved with us, right? But we are involved any which way, so I want to make sure you know that. Oh, like for instance, if we have a student teacher and we send them to something that's 90 miles away and something happens there, that will be me, just as an example. This is really important. I think we've done a better job of making sure people know this and understand this, and that is that all of you are responsible employees, which a lot of people are more familiar with the term mandated reporter, and we mentioned that earlier. It's not exactly the same thing because that's what we use for child abuse and neglect, and this is what we use for institutional reporting of issues that are Title IX related, but conceptually it's the same thing, and it means this. Let's say that someone who you are supervising in the community who's a student teacher comes to you and says that they have had this really creepy thing happen with this person who's supervising them in the school they're in, but they beg you not to tell me. Are they in charge of that decision? Who says yes? Who says no? Who says I'm not sure? Okay. The no's have it. I tell audiences, I'm a very pleasant person. That's self-report, so you have to wonder whether it's true. But I am not pleasant if I find out you delayed reporting something like this to me. I believe very strongly, having met with more victims of child abuse, sexual assault, dating and domestic violence, stalking, all those things than most people will ever know in their life, I believe very strongly that when people who have had an experience like that choose to tell someone, they are very specific about who they chose to tell. It's not some accident of fate that you're the one they told. And if they're choosing to tell you in this circumstance where you are their supervisor, what do you think? There's a couple different right answers here. Don't think I'm looking for one thing. What do you think that they're expecting or hoping in telling you? Yes. Kristen? They're asking for help. Who else had an answer? You just think that's the best answer and we're going with it? Yeah. Advice, that's a good one. They think we're smarter and have had some experiences, perhaps. Anything else? They trust you to help them, and what does help them look like in most of these instances? What are they mostly hoping for? For it to be reported or for it to be relieved, like to get, Believed, of course, that's a great answer, to be believed, yes. The only other one I want you to know is that they want it to stop, right? Okay, and so if because you were busy, or because you didn't remember, or because you want to talk to your supervisor first, or name your reason. If you don't get around to telling me, what does that student think, or how do they process what just happened? Yeah, who said that? You have to raise your hand a little at me. Yeah, that's my favorite answer. We know and we don't care. So, if I may say, that pisses me off. That embarrasses me on behalf of this institution. We shouldn't stand for that. And if you don't want to use my very technical term of how I feel about it when that happens, do you know what most litigation is about throughout this country? So very fancy institutions brought to their knees. Do you know why? Who said that? Yeah, because they didn't care, and then to take it one more step, what else did they not do? Yeah, they sat on their butts when it was time to do something. Is that what you were going to say? What? I can't hear you. Yeah, so just so you know, I'm not going to tolerate it. If something happens, you call me right away. Yes, sir? So if a student teacher in a classroom witnesses something they think was abusive, the report is to Children's Division through the hotlines, and all of your students ought to be working in schools that have posters up that show how to call that in. But if anybody is the least bit concerned about what to do, in my other life, I was a huge mandated reporter person. I'm still a member of the Child Abuse Neglect Review Board. I still review cases for them, and I still train on mandated reporting because it's very near and dear to me. So if anybody has a question, you can refer them to me as well. But it's the same answer. Report now, because that's what the statute says. It doesn't say think about it for a while or wait till you talk to your supervisor or designate someone to call. It says you call now. And the statute now says they have to give you time, relief time away from your duties in order to call. So, I would argue that's me and, all right, it's CD first, the 1-800 number first, but I would argue that you and I need to know about that also, because now we've got a person placed in a classroom, which I'm going to assume under your hypothetical, it's their supervising teacher who did something yucky like that. That's not cool, and we have to deal with that. So I'd say both, but them first. Yes? Okay, no, I did not mean to leave your department head out of this. Okay, because the truth, okay. In mandated reporting, they have taken out all of the impediments that used to be in place where you had to, they could designate an agent, that's what they used to call it, and you could have, they have made it so you don't have to do that. For our purposes of if it is one of our student teachers who's being treated yucky and they tell you, I am not telling you to tell me before your supervisor because I don't wish to make any enemies here today, but I think you should tell me at the same time because I'm going to work with your supervisor and we're going to take care of that immediately. And this is where the fact that I am a school board member means that I am acquainted with a lot of these people. Even when you send someone to really strange parts, I very well may know someone. So that helped hypothetically the last time I dealt with this. So I'd say you should tell us at the same time. I'd fire off an email. If it was 11:30 at night, I'd fire off an email right then and tell us both. Is that a fair answer? Okay, I'm getting some nods from the right direction. Yes? Yeah. Okay, let me just tweak your advice a little bit because things have changed, and that's why I did the new video. About 2 to 3 years ago, we no longer have those designated agents. No schools are allowed, no hospitals, nobody is allowed to put things in impediments or require that you tell someone else first. They can tell their cooperating teacher, but they do not have to, and they cannot pass on the responsibility of doing that hotline to their supervising teacher or to you. So they have to make the call, and it is not an obligation that they report it. Now, I would like to review the MOU that we have with these schools and make for sure that we don't have some language in there that makes that complicated. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, we may have some old language in there that we might need to reconsider, because the reality is the statute is very clear that they have no obligation to report that to anybody. Well, let me make it clear. They are obligated to report it. They aren't obligated to tell anyone they did it. Okay. That's not good enough. Under the statute now, frankly, I would argue if they told their cooperating teacher, they both have an obligation to call. And so I tell people, either if your resources allow it, call together, because one, these students are going to be freaked out. They've never done this before. If you have a good cooperating teacher, they're going to do a good job of giving you a good idea how to do this. Plus, they might both have a piece of information, and then we're giving the hotline person the best information. But if they can't do it together, they are both obligated to call. There could be times when like up to 5 people have an obligation to call. So if we need to look at these MOUs or something else and make sure we're changing that, or your syllabi to see what you have in there, I would really strongly urge you to do that. Part of why we did the new video is so we would know. Does that help, or have I muddied it? Okay. And do remember, I'll take your call anytime to work through this. I take my child abuse and neglect reporting very seriously. And I have to leave soon. Is it already 3:15? So I have to go to something else. But so instead, I think I got through most of what I wanted to say, but I had a whole lot of information about interim measures, green dot, and see, this is the stuff I added for you this afternoon that's not on yours. And then I have Project HEAL information. That's in my newest grant, and can I tell you how excited I am? In addition to having a project coordinator, the project coordinator for Green Dot is Janae Diven. And we've had that for a couple years now. The project coordinator for Project HEAL, which is our new grant, is Kunti Bentley. They're both in my office on the 2nd floor of Carrington, but here's the exciting news. The Project HEAL grant is a cooperation with OTC. So they have some new resources because of that, and so do we. We have a counselor in our counseling center, paid for this by this grant now, who specializes in helping people who have been victimized by sexual assault, dating, and domestic violence or stalking, and she has no limit on how long she can see people who need her. In her first couple of weeks here, last May, she was already up to 15 clients. I laugh because some people said to me, "Are you sure you can keep her busy?" Which was it, one of you up there that says they're stupid? When people said stuff like that to me, I'm like, are you paying any attention to what's going on around here? Yeah, I can keep her busy. Stupid. That was, I didn't say that part aloud. Does anybody have any other questions before I have to go? Really? Yes. I can't agree with you more how complicated it is, and if I was designing a best practice, I absolutely am in favor of you telling your cooperating teacher. In fact, I suspect you have to ask for some leave to go make the phone call, or I didn't get around to it today, but you know that there's the opportunity to do some of the non-emergency ones online instead of through the phone call, and I talk about that on my video as well, and I can give you more information about that if you want to email me later. So I didn't mean to imply that I didn't think it was a best practice to keep her or him involved. I'm simply saying It's not an obligation, and the reason it's not an obligation anymore is that before, when we had those things in place where you had to tell other people first, there were places where that hotline call got cut off because of people saying, oh, you shouldn't do that, they're a good family, we don't have time for that, I don't agree with you. That's the kind of stuff that this is designed to get rid of. But best practice would definitely be to do it together and to inform them. Totally agree. Yes? I can't hear you. Yeah. Oh, goodness, there's 3. I don't have them. Now you're asking me to have it memorized. May I send you that slide? Because there's 3. Okay, so what it does is tell you things you're not allowed to call it for. So you're not allowed to call it for sexual abuse, you're not allowed to call it for a meth lab, and you're not allowed to call it for concern of suicide. Excuse me, you're not allowed to do the online reporting for those 3. It's been a long day, people. You are not allowed to use the online reporting for an active meth lab, an allegation of sexual abuse, or an active suicidal issue. Did that sound better? What? So I'm fine with that. My friends at CD would really like me to encourage you to use the online because they have done a lot to beef up the resources they have to people using them. You don't have to leave the classroom. They're doing better about responding to you. But if you're asking me whether I am going to lose any sleep because you would rather use the phone, I am not. I am fine with you using the phone. I want you to use a form to make a record that you made the call, and maybe sometime I'll come back and talk to you about mandated reporting. But you don't have to use the online. It's not obligatory. And just so you know, it's only for mandated reporters. Joe Schmo on the street can't use the online. It's just for you all. Yes? I do. I made it with these people. I don't know what the rules are. That's for her. It's on your website, I think. It's super easy to access. Yeah, I would like you guys to watch it too, or I'll come give it to you live. I prefer to give it live because then you get to ask whatever questions you have like we have today. I'd much rather do it live for you all. Yes? Well, I'm a direct report to Cliff Smart, so I know he's supportive of what I do. They know how much time I spend out on the road talking to people. I have to tell you, as much as I tell you that I think this job is lousy and I can't believe that I agreed to do it, I get tremendous support. I have not asked for one thing around here that I didn't get except for more help. But I have. I started out alone, and now I have an investigator, and I've got 2 grants. Of course, we applied for them, but and we're going to grow. We just have to be able to be responsible. I have tremendous support from them. I don't speak to every faculty group because I have to be asked to come, but I've never said no, so if people ask, we come, and we speak a lot. Every single GEP class, many of the UHC, all the athletes, many of the sororities and fraternities, any group like you. So I appreciate that, but they're very supportive. Anything else? If you think of something that I didn't cover or you need something from me, please just email me and I'll be happy to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. That was very, very helpful. We're going to take a 10-minute break. You've been sitting for a while. Go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back. And the last part of our meeting today is about the MEES evaluation form. So I know you'll all be excited to hear about that. Thanks.